patrons. Thank you for your money. We're going to use it to put in a pool, Scrooge McDuck style, swim around with like a few bucks, some change. So we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. We have a very special guest here today. We have Rob, formerly of Our Strange Skies, here to educate us on all things UFO, particularly that take place in the Berkshires. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Rob.
Hello. Hello, hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah. I busted out my last Slim Jim for this, so
Whoa!
Nice.
I
Is that
know.
like your quarantine supplies? You're like they're getting low.
Sometimes you got to go out into this mean world and you got to get your
Your beef jerky.
smoky snack stick and you
Okay.
know,
I told everyone to stock up for beef jerky for the apocalypse. And that was not really the worst advice I've given.
no.
Did
I'm
I imply it was worth more than gold? Yeah, okay, that was wrong. But
yeah. You
the
totally did. You totally
I
did. And I would say that I was foolhardy. I thought I could get through it, and I failed. I absolutely failed, but that's totally fine. I will enjoy this as
yeah.
we record, at least.
Okay, good.
I
Okay.
will say that beef jerky being worth more than gold is pre-apocalypse value. Like
That's true.
Hmm.
post-apocalypse, beef jerky is certainly going to be worth more than gold. You can't eat
Right.
gold, right?
Exactly. I think
So,
that was sort of my point. I don't really remember.
well, I think
But
your point was that beef jerky is expensive, which is also true. It's just apparently not more expensive than gold, but whatever.
Well, especially if you want a quality piece of beef jerky, like there's only two ways you can go. You can go the thin boys or you can go the thick boys. And I'd rather have the thick boys, but my local supplier did not have them. They've been out of them for 2 goddamn weeks, and I am
oh,
paying for it.
is there like a Slim Jim shortage in the pandemic?
Maybe it's possible.
There was a Coke Zero shortage for a little bit, and I thought Mac was gonna like lose his shit.
The one thing that was short for about 2 months that absolutely drove me crazy was Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwiches because I eat them every
Oh,
day for work, and
mhm,
it's like
mhm.
you are taking away my soul right now, and I hate you.
It's like you're like I need sustenance to live. Like, what do you expect me to do?
Yeah, exactly.
I need my nutritious breakfast sandwiches to fuel my body.
I need my fake eggs, need that spicy sausage, and I need that croissant. So you give it to me.
Remember when everybody was making bread and there was a yeast shortage and it was kind
Hmm.
of quaint and fun and we're all quarantined and now the world is just on fire and it feels like that was a million years ago, but it was literally months.
Yeah, Mac actually has made a lot of bread, and our friend Zena had to bring us some yeast. Like she just dropped off yeast on my porch, and then Mac was like, "What is this powder? Why did someone just come to our house, come on our porch, leave powder, and leave?" And I was like, "Oh, that's yeast."
Are you sure?
Totally normal. Yeah, I
Are you-
mean, we made bread with it, so yes.
I got some of that yeast too and made some delicious bread. So,
Okay.
Sharing
Did the bread
information.
actually rise, or are you
yeah,
just
it was delicious.
okay? Just making sure, because sometimes people say, "Oh, somebody just dropped off yeast for me randomly,"
I don't think
Yeah.
Zeynep was cutting the yeast with
times
flour or
I'm
something.
not sure she would just give me free cocaine. You know what I mean?
Well, that no.
Free yeast, sure. Like that's what friends do, but free cocaine? I don't know that we're that good of friends. So- okay, well, Rob, thank you for waiting while we had some technical difficulties per usual. I think I might need a new computer. It's unhappy.
2021, we're all buying new fucking computers because we deserve it, and
That's a really good point, Rob.
yeah, this year is just a fucking it's a forest fire. That's what it is.
I'm sure it's gonna get so much better.
There's no end in sight for the Zoom calls, so we may we may
Mm.
need to look into upgrading our technology for this podcast. But
okay, but that's not why we're here today. We're here to talk about the Unsolved Mysteries reboot, and it seems like a really long time ago that those episodes dropped, but we still haven't talked about the fifth one and the sixth one, so that's why we're here.
that's what we're doing today.
and Samantha's going to start us off. This is the only paranormal mystery that we get in the reboot. I don't know. So, more are dropping in October, and I haven't seen any hint of kind of what mysteries we're getting. So, I don't know if we're getting something else paranormal or not.
I'm hoping we see some variety, but I will say, like, the first time, my first binge through the episodes, I think this is the one I paid the least amount of attention to, and I don't know why. I think maybe it's because everyone's name is John, and I was just confused by the timeline, perhaps. But
I
Oh, no,
don't,
no, no, no.
I,
Everybody's name is Tom.
Tom, that's it. Sorry, I'm already.
I don't find it super compelling. I'll say. I just rewatched it to refresh.
Hmm.
Mere hours ago, and I was like, yeah, this isn't their best editing.
I
No,
enjoyed it more upon rewatch, but I think it is because I was taking notes, so I was forced to pay attention to what everyone was saying in the timeline. The first time when I kind of just let it wash
The
over me,
timeline is like I can't really get a sense of it.
what I realized, and I guess we'll get in, and we will get into it, but people's stories aren't that detailed, so
no.
it makes it extremely confusing to flesh out what's going on. But anyway, let's get right into it. So the episode starts with some on-screen text, and this is what it says. On the evening of September 1st, 1969, an unexplained phenomenon occurred in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. And what I kind of liked and didn't notice the first time is that as this ominous music is playing, all of the text fades away except unexplained phenomenon, which I think is a cool like callback to OG Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and I think like uh the one thing that we all prayed for back in the day was decent, CGI, and we finally got it. And they made this one, gritty in line with the true crime stuff that they've been doing. And like the presentation, I think aside from like the editing flaws, is good. It is real
Yeah,
good.
mm-hmm.
I think with a case like this, and I think when it comes down to UFOs, the idea is the more people you can cram into a sighting, the more the credibility goes up.
sure.
And that is the ultimate flaw. And I mean, you're talking about true crime, which you need witnesses in true crime, you need evidence and all that stuff. But like in a UFO case, 99.99% of the time, there's like little to no evidence. The only evidence is the witness. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this,
Well, there's a
I,
lot of witnesses, at
I
least in this.
appreciated the aesthetic that they brought to the table.
Yeah, no, I really liked how the segment was shot, and like the reenactments that they do, I thought were pretty good. So like we said, there's just a lot of people in this episode. We first meet a woman whom we later learn is Jane Green. She's an old woman. She's standing outside of an old house, and she tells us that this is the house where she lived with her two boys when they were 10 and 12. And she points to a spot in the yard and says, "This is where they were wrestling when they looked up and saw it." Apparently these boys were being watched by their grandmother. They ran to their grandmother and told her what they had seen, but she didn't believe them and said not to tell their mother. Jane then reveals to us that when she returned home, she didn't tell the boys about her own frightening experience because she didn't want to scare them. This is like setting the stage for the episode because the credits haven't rolled yet. Apparently, this family kept their own secrets their entire lives up until Unsolved Mysteries called them to ask if they would be on the show. And she says, "All these years, we never spoke of it." And then the credits roll. I thought that was a really interesting way to start the segment, just like
It's a
with
good
this old
intro.
woman talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and that's like par for the course is like, we've gotten, um, just these like beginning interviews with people like, and most of them are like, I never saw this person again, or
Yeah.
um I whatever. But like in this situation, it's just like
It's
you
kind of
were
spooky.
yeah, you were severely haunted by something, and it's kind of clear that she was. And I was just like googling all I could today or the other day about this, because like There isn't a lot of information about the Berkshire's UFO sighting. Like most of these
Mm.
witnesses didn't come forward until it appeared on Unsolved Mysteries. There's
That's the
only
wild part to me.
That's really
Yeah.
yeah.
interesting.
The main proponent of this sighting is a man named Tom Reed, who we'll get into, but it's just like it's your small town UFO sighting that had seemed to have a lot going on with it, which I dig. But at the same time, I'm just like, man, this is like one of the most controversial UFO cases that Unsolved
Oh,
Mysteries went with.
interesting.
And I mean, like, that's not to say that Unsolved Mysteries didn't present some controversial cases. I literally got in a fight with a guy online over the Alonzo Brooks case who wanted to suggest the it's called the smiley face killer theory,
Oh
which
yeah.
is
Oh, yeah. Isn't that
Mhm.
bullshit?
yeah, it's the biggest bullshit. He wanted to suggest it in that case. I'm like, no, it was probably a hate crime. And then he called me prejudiced for thinking that it was a hate crime, even though the FBI dug up his body because they believe it's a hate crime. But
Why would the smiley face killer be in that bumfuck nowhere town? What's more
exactly.
likely supposed prolific serial killer was at that party, or that it was a hate crime with
It's a
one
That's
of the
ridiculous.
yeah, like
people are ridiculous.
it's a dumb theory that nobody in law enforcement except for the guys that proposed it actually believe it. And I mean, like, I think it was like Oxygen that devoted a mini series to it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you people thinking?
Oh well,
Yeah,
that's trash.
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so Jane Green has lived in Barrington, Massachusetts, in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. My note on Great Barrington is it sounds like the Berenstain Bears should live there or something. It sounds Great
Oh,
Barrington.
Samantha, they do. That's where
Well,
they live.
they might.
Yeah, that's their home. You're right.
So, are you being facetious right now?
No, I was making shit up. I don't know.
You were
Like,
saying
yeah,
you said that with
yeah,
such conviction. I was
yeah,
like,
that's
wait,
where
is
they
that?
live.
Do I not remember that from those books? Because the
I
only
have
thing I
no
remember about
I think they just live in like the woods. I'm
the
not even sure it has
I was
something.
gonna
the
say I
Berenstain.
know there's woods in Massachusetts, but I don't know if there's that much woods in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's where they live. That's where they're from.
So she's lived there since she was 12 years old. Her family had the oldest Rexall pharmacy in the Pacific Northeast, which apparently gave them like a lot of prominence
Well,
in
well,
Great
well.
Barrington.
When I meet someone and I find out they're from pharmacy stock, so
Fuck,
impressive.
they're rolling in that fucking big pharma money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were a big deal around Great Barrington.
Oh yeah.
So she tells us that this is the kind of town where everyone knows everyone's business. I think you could probably guess that. She's really funny the way she describes it, though. She says if someone like changed their breakfast from an egg sandwich to a donut, everybody would be talking about it.
That was the weirdest statement I think I
That's
that woman put
terrifying.
forth. It's just like, do people really pay attention to others like breakfast orders? Did they
Honestly,
literally order the
I
same
think
thing
so.
every day? And I know I just talked about eating the same fucking breakfast sandwich every day, but like even
Rob, if
I
you
switch it
change
up.
that, Samantha and I are gonna have words. I'm gonna be like, Samantha, do you think Rob's okay? He ate a different type of sandwich.
I will like keep you updated daily with what I am
Yeah, please
eating
do.
for breakfast. Because
Start an
sometimes I
Instagram.
do switch it up. Sometimes I do want that fucking French toast. I don't know. It's just
Well, that's the scary part is that like someone having not being told like would notice that like, oh, Rob got a donut today instead of a sandwich. Like I need to
Well,
go talk.
well,
I'm
well.
gonna go talk to everybody and see if you think Rob's okay.
This reminds me of I once went and visited some extended family in Nova Scotia, and we like stopped in like in a small town in Nova Scotia, the middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia, and we like stopped to get something to eat before going to our relative's house, and everybody already knew who we were. Like the waitress, like everybody in the restaurant was like, "Oh, you're coming to visit so and so. We knew you'd be here today."
that's like the setup for a fucking Stephen King novel. What the fuck?
I mean, everybody was super nice, but it was a little bit like, "Oh, hey." Like everybody knew everything about everyone like this. And I have to say that's like my personal hell.
I don't really want to live somewhere like that.
As an introverted person where like I don't want people to like stop by without telling me they're coming. Like the idea that people would be like, "What's Liz eating?"
I know.
We're
I
gonna
need to
talk
do it.
about it.
I need to
No.
plan at least for a week if somebody wants to fucking show up.
Yes, exactly.
That's gonna take. It's gonna take me that long to deal with the anxiety.
Exactly.
Yeah, this isn't a town for the likes of us. So next we meet the first of the Toms. As we said, everyone in this episode's name is
Oh my
Tom
god.
practically. And in fact, there's two Toms that were 10 at the same time of this incident. And I don't know, to distinguish between them, I think we should so Tom Warner, his family has been in Great Barrington for like a million years. They've lived in the same house for 6 generations. And then the other Tom, is that Tom Reed?
Yep.
His family moved to Great Barrington from New York City. So there's lifelong Tom and transplant Tom. Right now we're talking about Tom Warner, lifelong Tom.
Well, the interesting thing though is that if you read, because I'll get into Tom Reed's history at the end of this thing, but if you read his IMDb page, it says that he grew up in Cherry Hills, Colorado, not New York City before
He
moving.
told Netflix it was New York City. Was he trying to make himself seem
He also is like the most like I grew up in New York guy. Like he dresses, just the way he dresses and the fact that he's wearing this gold chain and shit. It's like, didn't you only live in New York till you were 6?
Oh no, his history goes much deeper, and like he's not
Uh-huh.
dressed like a guy from New York at this point. He's dressed like a guy from Miami, because that's where
Okay.
that's where his like most of his business. Do you remember what it said under his name for what he did?
an
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur?
Yeah, we're gonna get into the entrepreneur stuff at the end of
Okay.
this.
Oh, I'm
I'm
excited for this
intrigued.
extra information because I did do like fuck all for extra research for this. Okay, so he, like I said, is a lifelong Great Barrington resident. He has long hair. He tells us that a lot was changing in America in 1969, and at the time he was 10 years old and felt like he was changing a lot too. So next we meet the next Tom, which is Tom Reed. As we said, I actually made a note that Netflix tells us he's an entrepreneur, and I wasn't sure what that meant. So that's hilarious. So he moved there from at this point in the episode he just says the city, but we later hear him say it was New York. So anyway, I thought that was legit, but apparently he's maybe not the most reliable narrator.
Exactly.
I don't understand. He tells us specifically his word is his bond.
Well, if you have to say that,
I mean, I've read novels with unreliable narrators before, and I would put Tom Reed into that category.
Okay. All right.
So he was also around 10 years old in 1969. His mother, Nancy Reed.
Or was he? Because now I question everything.
Well,
You should.
Well, allegedly he was around 10 at this time. His mother, Nancy Reed, is on the show too, and she tells us that the move was precipitated by her buying a restaurant in town called the Village Green. It was sort of like a local hangout spot. Tom Reed says that he never felt like he belonged in Great Barrington and like he was, quote, meant for something else. Which is never explained. I don't know, like destined to be abducted by aliens. I'm not sure what he means by that. But Rob, maybe you'll have some insight later.
Oh, I'll have some insight on what he was destined to do.
Rob, do you think that you're destined to be abducted by aliens? Is that your destiny?
Nope. Nope. I'm gonna put a big old stamp of no on that one. We're gonna we're just gonna breeze right past that.
I mean, our advice to you as fellow business people was to get abducted by aliens to promote your brand.
Now I don't even really need to, though. I mean,
I know. So that's
true. You're free.
Yeah,
You've
I
broken
am
the
free.
shackles of podcasting.
Yeah, I'm like like I could breathe. It's nice. It's really nice.
Yeah,
I wonder what that's like.
You could just like have a weekend to do whatever you wanted.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man.
Oh man.
Huh.
Sorry, folks. This is the end of this podcast.
Something to think about.
All right, we next meet another person named Melanie Kirkdorfer, who was 12 years old in 1969. She apparently was a wild 12-year-old. She says that her and her friends would hang out on Main Street. Okay.
Her idea, she was like, we were pretty wild. Sometimes my friend and I would share one cigarette.
That's hardcore.
I was like, calm down, Melanie. I think it's going to be okay. She acts like she was like, I don't know, stealing cars and crashing them into trees or dealing drugs or something.
I think maybe for Great Barrington, this was pretty wild.
She was the worst kid in town.
Hanging out on Main Street and smoking one stolen cigarette.
Half a cigarette. Okay, all right, Melanie.
In fact, the weekend of the incident, her and her sister wanted to go smoke one stolen cigarette with her friend, but her parents wanted them to go get ice cream instead. So we'll
I
hear
was
more
like,
about that
I
later.
would never turn down free ice cream.
No.
Never.
Half a cigarette or free Dairy Queen? I think I
You
know what choice
know,
I'm going to make.
if it involved a man with a van, I think that's the only time.
That's fair. Okay, that's yeah. That's
So all of the people we've met so far have one thing in common, which is that they experienced something 50 years ago that they believe was otherworldly. And that brings us to September 1st, 1969.
and they've
So,
all come on Unsolved Mysteries to give us very few details about what they saw. So
yeah.
bless them for that.
Yeah. So we go back to Jane Green. She tells us that it was just after dusk and she was in a car in her car traveling from Stockbridge to Great Barrington, and she was with a woman named Mary who has since passed away. They were driving when they suddenly saw, quote, a lot of lights and thought that there must be an accident up ahead, that maybe it was, police lights or something. But as they got closer, they began to be unable to even drive because the lights were so bright. They pulled off to the side of the road along with another car whose driver also couldn't continue due to the bright lights. They got out of the car to see what was going on. And what she describes seeing next is, quote, a huge object that she couldn't see the end of on either the right or left. She could not tell what the material was that it was made of. She says it was tall with no windows and that it hovered in the air but made no noise. In seconds, she says that it lifted up and flew silently over the mountain. I don't know about you guys, but I could not get a image in my head of what the fuck this thing looked like.
No.
I
um,
I
I
guess
it
is it like dome shaped? I mean, we hear later that it was like a sideways turtle, which I also don't kind
it
of
was yeah,
understand
like
what
uh,
shape that is, but
the idea is like most of these people can't understand what they're seeing, so they're grasping at straws to try to explain what it is, and basically what it is, and in within the popular context of like UFOs, it's a classic saucer. So
okay.
like it's a silver saucer basically.
Okay.
Samantha,
And
you gotta see that really good painting later. I don't understand how you could be confused about what it looks like when you
I'm
Well,
gonna tell you, for a Patreon, there is a documentary you need to see about a guy who painted his alien abductions, and it is fucking wild.
Oh, what is it? What is
It's
it?
called Love and Saucers. It's about this guy named David Huggins. He's a lifelong alien abductee, and he paints his experiences. Now, this guy also claims that he lost his virginity to an alien, and he paints that.
oh.
We
Okay.
definitely need to watch that.
Okay.
You
I'm
definitely need to watch that. It's only an hour long. I'm friends with the director. It's a great documentary because like yeah, he seems a little crazy, but he's really down to earth with his craziness.
okay.
I'm into it.
I'm
Yeah.
into it. I kind of want to see these wild paintings. Yeah, I guess we do get some some excellent artwork later. But I'm not really fully understanding what Jane saw, but I guess you're right. It was probably just like a saucer. I don't know why she has such a hard time describing exactly what it looks like, but whatever. So next we get Tom Warner again. This again is lifelong resident Tom Warner. He gives us his experience. So he remembers that it was a very hot Labor Day, and he was next door coloring with his neighbor Debbie, who is 4 years older, and would apparently yell at him if he colored outside the lines, which seems kind of mean. But
Yeah,
maybe
like
What a
Debbie was a
weird,
bully.
that was so fucking weird.
what a weird detail to include in this. What does that have to do with anything? And
I guess
also,
it's because they
Right.
were coloring, but I mean, that's all we hear about Debbie is that she would like berate him for
no,
coloring out of the line.
inside the lines.
Like the way she yelled it too, I just appreciated that so damn much.
Yeah, she was very intense about coloring. Debbie was.
Really was.
Not really the point of coloring, but all right.
Yeah, especially for a child.
Yeah, like I just like okay, Tom, if you're somehow subscribed to this Patreon,
Which I hope.
here's what I'm
assume
going to
is
tell you,
true.
bud. When it comes to the lines, you can go your own way. Listen to Fleetwood
Yeah.
Mac, okay?
Yeah, they were right about so much.
I mean,
Yeah.
this didn't discourage him from becoming an artiste.
Oh yeah,
A true
that's very
artiste.
true.
So, maybe Debbie inspired him in some ways. So she must be dead now because her sister Jenny is interviewed for the show instead. Or maybe she just doesn't want to be on TV. I'm not sure.
You said that so casual. She must be dead now.
Yeah,
We don't even hear from her.
Yeah,
They
that
don't
was
tell us if she's alive or dead. So, but who knows?
True.
This was
True.
50 years ago. So maybe. Tom says that it was getting late. They had finished coloring. So he walked over to the window and remembers hearing a voice in his head tell him, "You need to go home now." This, of course, terrified him. And so he started sprinting out of the house, alarming everyone in there. He's running full speed, and then about halfway between his house and his neighbor's house where he was, he suddenly is running but not moving at all. And Jenny remembers seeing him running in place in the yard, which must have been a very strange sight.
Yeah, I would like to see that.
I could see this incident right here being used as inspiration for a Peloton commercial. I can totally see it.
Oh, yeah. Peloton could get spooky with their advertisements.
Yeah,
fucking
hook us
change it
up.
up.
Yeah.
Give us a
We
call,
need that
Peloton
money.
marketing team. So
don't-
next,
We don't need commercials with fucking like creepy husbands buying their wives who really
No,
don't want
aliens.
fucking Peloton. Like, fuck that.
No, aliens. That's their new route for them.
Yeah.
that would be my marketing advice. Like
For
all,
everyone,
for every
yeah.
company would just be like,
Yeah.
how can you fit aliens into your campaign?
Right. Like, I think the go-tos every single time that will sell merchandise for you, aliens and sharks. I think you could go both,
for sure,
a long
sharks.
way with both.
Do you
For
want to
sure,
be able
sharks.
to outrun a shark? Peloton.
Yeah, fucking yeah, exactly. Like maybe if you got Michael Phelps who failed to outswim a shark and you got him on there and you got him training, holy shit. Somebody call us like right now. Get us
so
on
good
your
at this.
marketing team.
Yeah, we're so good at this.
This
Yep.
is gold.
Yep.
So next, Tom remembers turning and seeing a UFO drop out of the sky. Suddenly, a beam of light hit him, and his arms were thrust backwards. In a flash, Tom says that he disappears, and Jenny remembers saying, "Well, where did he go?" So we have two witnesses. We have Tom himself, and then Jenny, who also saw him completely disappeared. So next, we go to Lake Mansfield, which is 2 miles away. Melanie and her sister are being forced to get ice cream with their parents instead of smoking that stolen cigarette with their friend.
It's the worst. It's the worst thing that's ever happened. Oh my god. My parents are so embarrassing.
I want to get some ice cream, actually. That sounds lovely.
I know.
So after getting their ice cream, the family went to Lake Mansfield to hang out and eat. Their father backed the car into the parking lot when suddenly a blinding light, Melanie describes it as an aura, fills the car. Her father says, "Holy shit." Her mother scolds him, and the kids start screaming.
That's a very realistic, kind of relatable moment.
It really is.
Mhm.
So the next thing, which is what that happens, which is hilarious, is her father decides he's gonna chase the flying craft, which it's not even clear to me that there is any. This is weird. I don't fully understand because all Melanie describes is a blinding light. Maybe she's only seeing the light and her father is seeing a craft, but he wants to chase it. He says, "We gotta chase this." And I was kind of like watching, like, what are you chasing? The light? Or does he see the craft drop down? I don't think we're not really told.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's a good question.
Well, I mean, like, even if it's a light, what the fuck kind of light is it, and why? Like, it seems to be a little too low for a helicopter or something. So, like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
not
chase
fully
that, too.
understand. I get it is hilarious to me that he's just immediately like, "We gotta chase this." Like
Mhm.
he's some sort of superhero or something. Like, what are you chasing? What are you
I'm
gonna do if
putting
you
an
catch
end to
it?
this.
Yeah,
I'm putting an
exactly.
end to lights.
So the kids are scared and beg him not to, but he does anyway. We do not get a lot of details about what exactly transpires next. All Melanie says is that her sister has no recollection of what happened, but she remembers levitating and then suddenly being on a ship. According to Melanie, she was laid out on the ship with her arms out to the side. Tom Warner is apparently on the ship too because he comes back to tell us that he sees Melanie crouched in a corner of the ship, I guess. Melanie says that she doesn't remember seeing Tom, but apparently he saw her.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I wish I got more of like a visual of what this ship looked like, but all we hear is that she's on a ship. We get no details at all about what this looks like, except that Melanie says that she's in a room full of children and that the children would suddenly just disappear one by one.
That's creepy.
Yeah, that is it's fucking creepy, and I don't cotton to that bullshit.
Yeah, it is weird and scary. But suddenly she says she woke up and that she was at the lake by herself and she had to walk home. What we also don't hear, we only hear from Melanie. I want to know what she said to her parents, what they asked her, what she like, what they thought in sitting in the car and suddenly Melanie's not there. Like
Or like she walks home and they're like, "Where were you? Where did you go?"
we get none of those details.
Yeah, and I think honestly, in one of the weird things, like uber weird things about like these kind of abduction experiences where other people are involved, that the events almost seem so goddamn mundane that they don't even think about them. They don't even really remember them until someone else reminds them of it. So, if I had to guess in like a pinch, her parents probably didn't even think about it.
Weird.
That's so
Mhm.
weird.
Yeah, because I'm imagining what we hear is essentially her father is chasing something, maybe a UFO, and then suddenly the kids in the back seat are gone, and
Mhm.
then Melanie shows up at home. Like, what were they thinking? Did they also have missing time, or like I don't know. I wanted to hear their stories, but maybe they're dead too. I don't know.
Yeah, like and again that presents the problem with an episode like this is like you're either going to have to focus on these few witnesses or you're going to have to shove so many people at the screen in an episode that it just like kind of muddles it.
Yeah,
So
that's
like
true.
Yeah.
I that's kind of the double-edged sword with like really like cases containing a lot of witnesses. It's just like how many witnesses can you get on the screen saying the same thing? Like it's good in a report, it lends a lot of credibility to it, but it's just well, it doesn't really lend anything else besides that.
Well, that's true. And like you said, what gives UFO sightings the most credibility is more witnesses. So if you're
Yeah.
trying to pack in as many witnesses as you can in a show, I guess you sacrifice some details. With, you can't go into too many details on one case if you're trying to just squeeze them all in. So I guess that makes sense a little bit. But I was really, especially the second time watching it, taking notes, I was kind of like, wait a second, I want to know more about what happened here, but we don't get that. So we go back to Tom Warner, who says the next thing he knows, he's being, quote, laid down like a baby on the ground a few yards from where he originally disappeared, and he helpfully acts this out for us.
He
Yeah.
does. I appreciate that. He kind of has the look of I can't remember the character's name, but he's in like the first few episodes of the X-Files. He's like the alien abductee. He's wearing a black hat that says nightcap on it, and like he's got long hair. Like this is that guy.
Yeah, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see Tom Warner, you're like, yeah, that dude was abducted by aliens. I don't know, I can't explain that, but when you see him, you're like, yeah, this makes
So
sense.
look, yeah.
There's a look to him. So
Mhm.
he says that he was laying there and a beam of light from the sky was holding him in place. His brother was behind him telling him to run, but he said he physically couldn't because this light was holding him down. And then he heard a voice tell him, "I'm almost done," which
Oh
I don't,
yeah, it
that's
said
weird.
I'll be done in a minute.
Yeah,
That's
which
so
is
creepy.
Mhm.
really creepy. What are they doing? I mean, I guess we can only speculate. It's
Right.
weird though.
I'll be
Um
done in a minute.
so he says this whole thing took about 7 minutes. And then we go back to Melanie, who says that she really never knew Tom Warner before this because they, were 2 years apart. They had different friends, but that when she met him later after the incident occurred, she said she felt an immense connection with him. I guess because they both experienced this abduction. That's their story. Next we go to Tom Reed, allegedly from New York. He says that this day he was riding in a horse show There was apparently an incident during the horse show where like the saddle on his pony started to slide to the side and he was almost thrown off and people had to rescue him. And I guess to celebrate him not dying, the family decides to go out to dinner. Okay.
As you do. Yeah.
As
Yeah.
you do. This is him, his little brother, his mom, and his grandma. They go out to dinner, but because they went out to dinner that wasn't really planned, it was sort of getting late and they had to get home. They might have had school the next day. So to speed things up, his mom decided to take a shortcut home over the Sheffield Bridge, which is about 6 miles south of Great Barrington. As they started going through the covered bridge, Tom's grandma turned around in the front seat to tell him to not give a red hot candy to his little brother because he might choke, when she suddenly saw a light rising up from the banks of the river. As
Mhm.
they exited the bridge, Nancy describes a ball of light 2 stories high hovering off to the right of the car. As it rose into the air, it apparently fired rods of light into the ground. Everyone in the car was fixated on this ball of light off to the right, except for Tom's little brother, who looked to the left, where there was a glowing orange orb. And then Tom and his mother described feeling like the atmosphere around the car changed, like they were underwater, or the pressure around them changed. Nancy stopped the car. Everyone's freaking out. And the next thing they see is a disc shaped object hovering in front of the car. And this is where Nancy describes it as a sideways turtle shell,
Hmm.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I'm
exactly.
like still have a hard time picturing. But I feel like it's just a disc, right? It's just like a
Yeah.
UFO shape,
Yep.
I assume.
Classic saucer, pretty much.
So Tom thinks that it was about 100 yards long. As they are watching the object, the car suddenly lights up as if it was daylight inside the vehicle. Both Nancy and Tom describe everything around them being dead quiet until suddenly it wasn't. There was an eruption of crickets and katydids and frogs. Just all the nature around them was suddenly louder than they'd ever heard it, which is scary. I mean, Tom tells a good story here, and
Mhm.
Nancy. It's pretty frightening.
The one thing about Tom is that his story, which has really only been like in the public spotlight for like 5 years, is surprisingly consistent. He has never changed details
Hmm.
of it.
Okay.
Okay. Interesting. And I mean, his mom being there, I think lends some credibility to it as well. So that's the last thing that both Tom and Nancy remember was the loud crickets. The next thing they know it, they've lost 3 hours. They come to in front of the drugstore, and Nancy and her mother were swapped seats in the front of the car. Um,
Uh,
yeah,
that's
Nancy
what
was
we
driving.
call that's what we call an alien fuck up right there. And
It does seem like an alien fuck up.
aliens fuck up all the time. I'm gonna go
Hmm.
through a couple of my
Oh.
favorites here. There are times when aliens will put the clothes of the human beings on inside out. They
Okay.
will tuck them in like really awkwardly. Like they'll put like even the fitted sheet over them sometimes because they just don't understand how fitted sheets work and stuff like that.
I have
Um,
that same problem. You try and fold a
Yeah.
fitted sheet, I couldn't do it. I would
Exactly.
never expect an
Exactly.
alien to understand it.
Yeah, instead of putting them in bed, lengthwise, they put them in sideways. So, like, still, again, they don't understand beds. My favorite thing, though, is this woman in, I want to say she lived in Massachusetts. She worked on this farm and she was a lifelong alien abductee. And she was coming from a Christmas party and she had received a present that had, like, chocolates in it. And she got abducted. She came to and she realized she had been abducted because the candies, they were wrapped. Well, when she looked at it, she realized the package had been unwrapped and then rewrapped really poorly. So like aliens don't know how to fucking wrap Christmas paper either. They're fuck ups. They're just fuck ups.
Why
That's
did they want to try one of the chocolates, you think? Why did they
I
unwrap it?
think so. Like I
They were
think
like, "This looks good."
sometimes they seem genuinely curious. The other times they just seem like dick bags. Like there's this one story about this one old lady who consistently found herself outside and naked at night. The doors were locked, and every single time the aliens would steal her nightgown.
Well,
That's a dick move.
It
that is
is
a
a
dick
dick move.
move, and it's a creepy perv thing to do. How is
It
she supposed to get
is.
back in our house nude?
Yeah.
That's
That
rude. That
those
is
aliens are
okay. It's one thing for aliens to come here and abduct us. It's another thing for them to be fucking rude about it.
Like
Just crosses a line.
like you're coming here through like whatever means of travel.
They are guests. They are
Yeah.
guests on this earth, and they should act accordingly.
Yeah, exactly. Take a picture with your phone if
Unacceptable.
you don't know how it's supposed to be, for
Yeah.
fuck's sake. Come on.
Like,
I mean,
they've spent all this time studying cows, and apparently they should have been studying sheets and how beds work.
it's really can they not get on YouTube? So I've spent my entire life struggling to put duvet covers on a
Oh,
fucking
God.
duvet
Yeah.
comforter, and I finally Googled it the other day and found a very helpful Rachel Ray article or video that describes like how you can like roll up the duvet cover and the duvet and just like flip it inside out, and it works perfectly. My mind was blown. Can
Oh,
aliens not
interesting.
just fucking Google it?
No.
Like, can they
They don't
not
have-
like
they have a
use
different-
their
They have different internet.
I
Remember that.
guess that's true. Maybe they do have different alien
I
YouTube.
don't even think they have the internet. I think they just like have like whatever they get from like people's
Knowledge.
minds through like telepathy and shit. I think that's
Yeah.
what they get.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So
So
they
if-
have yet to abduct anyone that understands fitted sheets, so they don't know.
they should abduct
Oh
Rachel Ray.
fuck! I
bet
know how
they'd
to
get all
fold
kinds of
and
that.
cheat 3 different ways. Fuck! I am fucked.
So this was an alien fuck up because Nancy was driving, and there is no way. So first of all, they're like miles away. So clearly they have traveled. Their car has traveled from where it was on the bridge in front of the pharmacy on like Main Street, and Grandma is in the driver's seat, but Grandma didn't drive. So there's no way that she would ever be in the driver's seat and Nancy would be in the passenger seat. So this was startling, of course, to everyone.
I think that's a very important detail.
I think so too.
They're like, why is that old woman driving? She can barely see. We wouldn't put her in the driver's seat.
She maybe didn't. My grandma didn't have a driver's license her entire
Yeah.
life. So I'm assuming that. I mean, that's
Yeah.
true for a lot of grandmas. So this
Mhm.
woman probably never drove at all, and so she would
They were
never
like,
be in the driver's seat.
Grandma, what you doing?
You know you can't be behind the wheel, Granny. You got glaucoma and shit.
Yeah, exactly. So now we go back to Jane Green. She gets home and is in utter disbelief. She tells her husband what she saw, and he suggests that she go and report it to the radio station.
That's such a wholesome recommendation.
As you do. I thought that was pretty wholesome.
Oh,
as
you were
well.
you're abducted by an alien? You know, you should go tell the radio station.
Go tell the radio. Give them your story. So she
Mhm.
does.
Oh my
she
god, Samantha! Yesterday I heard us on the radio. Not
That's-
us, but I heard about us on the radio, and it was so exciting.
I wish I could have heard it. That's
It
so
blew my
exciting.
mind. I need to record it somehow.
Yeah,
think
next
we
time you
put-
hear it, whip out your phone.
Okay, all right. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, we're running ads for this podcast now on the radio, and it is extremely exciting. The thought
Very
that
exciting.
people are just going to be like driving down the road, listening to the radio, and then hear about this podcast.
Oh hell yeah! Just switch over.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And they go, "Why are we listening to the radio? It's time for a podcast." It'll like snap them out of it. What? I don't need the radio.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be like an alien abduction, the aftermath, and like you're in the passenger seat, you were driving. Who the fuck's driving now?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
like that.
So Jane does head to the radio station, and surprise, surprise, the guy running the place is named Tom. And apparently that's the only name dudes can have in this town. He didn't
Berkshire's is just the land of Toms.
apparently.
Massachusetts, yeah, it's Tom is like the neutral name, and like there are a fuck ton. Like Massachusetts is the home of just like bland ass names. That's the only thing I can think is like everybody in Massachusetts has a bland ass name. And if you don't have a bland ass name and you live in Massachusetts, you're my fucking hero.
Right in.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let us know if you have a non-bland name. No one, and it seemed at least in this time in Berkshire had anything, but it was
They had to be named
Tom's,
Tom.
Jane.
And if you were a woman, Tomina. That was it.
That's hot fire. I think that's gonna be one of the hot baby names of 2021.
Tomina.
Tomina.
Yep.
Probably. So, Radio Tom didn't believe Jane and said that she was just seeing swamp gas. And she's like, nah, I know what swamp gas looks like. This wasn't fucking swamp gas. It was a UFO. And then eventually, like a few hours later, he was suddenly inundated with calls from other residents having also seen the strange lights. So he thought there might be something to this. Tons and tons of people called into the radio to Tom to tell them their stories. Unfortunately, we hear from like a present day radio guy who wasn't born yet at the time, but is running the radio now. And he says that none of those recordings were saved. They would just re record over the tapes the next day. They never even thought to save anything. So all of those stories, unfortunately, are lost. It's too bad.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Also, unfortunately, there's apparently 1 page worth of historical police record from that night. Incidents reported that day, according to the historic record, include a missing woman who was just at work and a man complaining about beer cans on his lawn. Nothing about the UFO, which is that's honestly shocking. That like, if anyone called the police, they like didn't write it down. I mean, which I get, maybe that's not that shocking.
They
Maybe
were
the
just like, yeah, whatever. Prank call.
right.
Let's get back on this beer can situation. It sounds very serious. We've got work to do.
Yeah, for sure.
A woman who was just working the night shift, that's why she wasn't around, and then this guy complaining about beer cans, probably his beer cans on his lawn.
Hey, I don't know how all these beer cans got here after I drank a lot of beer. Someone look into it.
Oh, to be like a small town cop.
I know. So historian Gary comes up next, and he combs through records of the local newspaper, but finds exactly no references to the sightings at all. He suspects that people either didn't believe what they had seen, or he talked to at least one former editor who told him that he thought it was just jokesters and never bothered to put it in the paper. So there's essentially no no record historically that these sightings even happened, other than the people who have come forward now to say that they saw it. There's nothing in the paper, there's no recordings from the radio, there's no police reports, nothing, which isn't like exactly the most helpful if you're trying to like investigate these sightings.
No, it's a little bit of a letdown.
We next meet Eddie Galato, who has a very bushy mustache and owns a gas station in town.
This guy is, I cannot believe this guy is real.
This is a character.
This is a real person?
This is the quintessential small town gas station attendant.
I mean, this guy was born to work at a gas station.
Mhm.
Like, when he came out of his mother's womb, they were like, this guy's going to be running a gas station one day. Which I think actually his dad used to run it, maybe. So maybe that's literally true. But
well, his dad used to be the police chief. I'm not sure if this gas station, like, it seems like him and his dad are prominent figures. Like, everybody knows him because he runs the gas station.
Sure.
Everyone knew his dad because his dad, and he looks exactly like his dad now. So he says people will always come in and like mistake him for his dad. And he's like, nah, we just have the same mustache.
I cannot believe this is a real dude.
I mean, yeah, this is honestly a character, but
he points at this photo of his dad that's in the gas station, and it's just like it's a photo you'll see on every Tinder profile of a guy who just killed a deer.
Yep.
And he's like, it's a beautiful photo, and it's like all faded from the sun, and it's literally just a photo you've seen a billion times of different dudes with different deer. And I was like,
it's like above a doorway. He like has to touch it every time he goes through the doors.
It's all sun bleached and faded, and he was like, it's a beautiful photo.
You know,
how are you a real dude?
Yeah, like literally you will frame your toxic masculinity in a photo and then you'll take the deer and put that on the wall, so it's like you got the double fucking decker like Big Mac of fucking toxic masculinity just right there.
I mean, I feel yes.
That's what we'll call his mustache. The double decker, the fucking double decker of toxic masculinity.
Exactly. There you go.
I like that name. That's a impressive name for a mustache.
Yeah.
So his father at the time of the sightings was the police chief, and this maybe is why apparently he claims that his father investigated all of the sightings that he received, but he also thought it was quote a bunch of baloney. So I think maybe that's why there wasn't like any reports, because his father was just like, yeah, this is bullshit. But Eddie and his friends, because they kept hearing about these, were super excited and decided they were going to go out and investigate themselves, except that they saw literally nothing. So I don't know what the point of that story is.
Right.
Some of this just feels like it's killing time.
Yeah. they needed to get a few more minutes, so let's just go talk to the locals about this case, see what they have to say. Like,
Yeah, and I guess like his father having received all of these reports from people who they saw like apparently lights touching down and taking off in like nearby farm fields. So I guess his father receiving all like him remembering his father receiving all those reports maybe is some evidence, but there's no actual police records of him receiving these reports or
no.
anything. And he's, I assume, also dead at this point because we hear from his son. So yeah, I don't know, but this doesn't give us more details other than lots of other people also saw lights. So I don't know. Tom Warner says that after a while, he stopped telling people about his story because it made people think he was weird. Imagine that. Tom starts painting.
It's the only reason why they thought he was weird.
The
I
only reason.
like he wasn't helping himself, so Jesus Christ. Like, come on, dude. Like, if you had toned it down a little bit,
He
maybe
can't. He has to be true to himself, Rob.
It does
I
seem like
get
it's all
that.
he wanted to talk about. He tells us that he would like be around a campfire and like just insist on telling the story again. And I feel like all his friends probably did think he was kind of weird. Like, we
They're like,
get
all
it.
right, that's
Yeah, like
enough.
this thing affected you, dude, but like could you stop telling it to us for the fifth time? We're a little freaked out now and we think you should like get help and like just stop. Get a haircut and like assimilate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
he
not
probably
sure
should.
men recognize the like healing power of a good haircut enough. Like that could have really probably turned his life around. Sometimes a good haircut is just like a rebirth.
It's true.
Sometimes like when you don't need to look like some roadie from the fucking 80s, there's so much redemptive power in that. Like there is like the liberation in like shaving your goddamn head. That's why I do it like once a month. It just feels so great.
There you go. Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
The
Yeah.
healing power of a haircut. Tom
He
Yeah.
should have
should give
tried
it a
that
shot.
out. Yeah.
He should really give it a shot. What he does instead is paint his experience, which he found very therapeutic. And we get to see
Mhm.
his paintings, and they're paintings.
I think it's just one, and I mean, I don't want to be mean to children, so I'm not going to say it looks like a child did it.
I will say that David Huggins, the dude I talked about, the paintings are definitely a step above this. He's actually pretty good.
Rob,
Okay.
how much would you pay for this painting?
um God, I feel bad for the guy. I'd just give him $100, you know?
Yeah, I think I could squeeze out like maybe 75 for this.
Mhm.
I want this exact one though. I don't want him to make a copy.
No, no. I don't
No
want a fucking
prints.
lithograph.
No,
Give me the
no.
goddamn painting.
I want the actual painting.
Yep.
That's pretty generous.
Mm.
You put that in the Roswell bathroom. Um
Exactly.
so Melanie was thankful to have her sister who also experienced it, and she of course believed her. She had a boyfriend at the time who believed her as well, but those are the only two people she ever told. Tom who fell off a horse, wanted
Ugh.
I hope
forgot
that's
his
what his friend
Like,
Tom
called
to
him.
be
Reed.
fair, he didn't fall off the horse. He
Well, that's
almost
true.
fell off the horse.
That's true. They celebrated that he didn't fall off that horse. That's right.
Yeah,
I
by
would like
going
to
to a
introduce
diner that his
you.
mom owned.
I would like to introduce you to my fiance, Tom, who fell off a horse.
I'm gonna be Mrs. Fell off a horse.
Mrs. fell off a horse. I can't wait until the day I Mrs. fell off a horse. Oh.
So Tom
Amazing.
fell off a horse, wanted to get what happened off his chest. So he would tell pretty much everyone, but apparently it started causing him to get into fights at school. I'm not sure if it was the story or if it was his personality, but he was getting into a lot of fights. Nancy says that their family was harassed to the point where they eventually sold everything and moved away from Barrington. Yeah, they say that they were like
People were like
ridiculed for
following them
being,
home.
yeah, like she at one point was like tailgated by a truck very aggressively, and like they were harassed for like not being from the area.
So there are legendary incidents where people are bullied after having UFO sightings and talking about them. There's a couple that are pretty infamous. One of them from like 3 years previously to when this incident happened, there was this police officer named Dale Spar in Portage County, Ohio, and he got a call one night that there was a strange object flying around. No, actually, it was to go investigate an abandoned car. They go out and investigate this abandoned car, and they see this like weird object like lift up and just fly over their car. And they proceeded to chase the thing for over 60 miles across state lines before it disappeared. And Dale Spar, he was fired from the police department not long after that, and his life took a pretty drastic turn to the point where he named the UFO that ruined his life Floyd, which was, that's a baller choice, I would guess.
Huh.
The other guy, uh, about a year after that incident, there was another police officer who who had a similar type experience where he actually claimed that he had been abducted by a UFO. Like the way that he his name was Herbert Shermer, and he described seeing this craft in the middle of the road. He had this episode of Missing Time. He went and explored it, and he found that he had been brought on board this UFO. They had basically just shown him around the ship, talked to him a little bit, and then like sent him on his way. And during the time that he was meeting with a hypnotist to review his experiences, this was in Colorado. The people that found out about it actually set his car on fire.
Oh, yikes.
That's a little extreme.
Yeah, no, it's extreme, and in some cases it is extreme like that. It's few and far between, but like the ridicule factor goes up, especially in like small towns. People don't like being made fools of, but I do appreciate the towns that stand out for honoring their weirdness, like Point Pleasant or Flatwoods.
I mean, that's what Barrington
Yeah.
should have done. They should have a
Yeah,
festival.
they should embrace it.
One of the things that is interesting about this sighting is that specifically Tom Reed's sighting, is the only historically acknowledged UFO sighting in history. And in 2015, the Great Barrington Historical Society actually inducted this story into their like historical records,
Oh.
to the point where it was honored. There was a ceremony out at that Sheffield Bridge, which you can't drive over it anymore, but there was a plaque that was erected right next to the road in
Hmm.
2015. Now,
I
for a
love a
long
plaque.
time, we didn't know who erected it, but it came out last year that it was the show Ancient Aliens that had erected this monument.
They just
Okay.
And
put up a monument and didn't tell anyone?
That
there
sounds like them.
yeah, and the thing is like they took it down too. Like the town took it down because it was on town land and they didn't get permission to put it up. So,
That
that's
tracks.
that's a
Ancient aliens
strike.
people just being dicks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a strike against Tom Reed. So Tom Reed, his entrepreneurial background. So
Oh yeah, tell us.
yeah, Tom Reed got involved in as
I want to
a
guess. Wait, I want to guess.
okay, go for it.
Nightclub promoter.
You're pretty much on par. You're
Are
close.
is that right?
It's close. It's so he started out as a stage manager and photographer for fucking Club Med back in the 80s.
Okay, sure.
And
Oh, the heyday of Club Med. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. And then he got into like photographing models and stuff like that. And then in 1995 he founded the Miami Models of South Beach, Florida. And they
That
had
sounds creepy.
yeah, they
Is
had
it creepy?
It's Tom Reed. I don't know the
Okay.
level of
Does he have
creepiness.
a windowless van?
No, I'm sure he does. He's got
Oh
a
God.
no. We'll get into what he has in a minute, but um, he had contracts with like Polo, Tommy Hilfiger, Nike, Ralph Lauren. Like the greatest hits of like
Oh, this
'90s
is
men's fashion.
it's actual modeling. It's not just like
Yeah, yeah.
he
Okay,
invites you
all
to
right.
his to his
Um,
warehouse and takes
His
pictures of you
bunker.
and
Yeah.
okay, so he also represented the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders, so you have that.
Okay, all right.
oh, okay.
This is
Um,
real work.
so he doesn't have a windowless van. What he does have is a privately owned 1970s Lincoln Town Car that you can rent for the low price of $85 an hour. It's if you want to rent it, look for
Why?
his company called the Rolling Zone.
Why would you want that?
I don't. It's
Is it
Tom
cool?
Reed.
Is it
What's
like
special
lime
about
green
it?
or something?
Um,
Does it have an alien
uh,
airbrushed on the hood? Because then, yeah, I'll run it.
It was apparently built by the West Wind Coachworks, which I have no fucking idea
Okay,
what
that's
that
just
means.
boring. Who cares?
And it's got low mileage. Definitely low mileage.
What?
Yeah.
Why? I don't care about that if it's
Why do
something
you?
I'm renting.
Yeah, why? Why does that matter to anyone other than him?
I don't know.
Does it have such low mileage
So,
because no one's ever renting it?
I
no one wants
assuming
to
so.
deal with him. He's
Like,
like, man, still only 55 miles on this thing. Can't
well,
believe
his
it.
website is kind of confusing because like it says owned by founder of Miami model South Beach, but like the address for this place is in Farragut, Tennessee. So,
Yeah,
I'm
that
just
sounds about
confused
right.
all around.
That sounds
Huh.
about right.
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
I have
So,
a
Okay.
question for Samantha, though,
All right.
which is that if you were going to name a UFO that's ruined your life, what would you name it? I don't think
Hmm.
Floyd is a good name at all.
That
I
doesn't immediately tell me that the UFO ruined their life. So yeah, it needs to be like
well, let me put a little like a little ambiance to it. So,
Okay.
Dale Spar, I think he ended up buying a bar, which is where he spent most of his time to
Dale's
the end of his
Bar.
life,
Bought
and
a
he would sit
bar.
at the end of the bar and he would brood talking about Floyd, the fucking UFO that ruined his life.
I want to go to that bar.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
I
it
don't.
does.
I bet there's no one in there except that guy who's just gonna tell you about the UFO that ruined his
Actually,
life.
so true. And all they have is like natty delight in a bottle. Like there's nothing on tap at that bar.
No,
All
no,
Oh,
not at
right.
all.
Yeah, Liz, okay, I'm not exactly sure. Liz, what would you name a UFO that would ruin your life?
Barbara. Absolutely Barbara.
Isn't 2020
100.
the year of the Karens though? Well,
It
shouldn't it be
is.
Karen?
It
You
is.
can name your UFO that ruins your life, Karen. I'm sticking with Barbara.
Okay. I mean, I think those are pretty much well tied. Either a Barbara or a Karen's gonna ruin your life.
Yeah,
For sure.
Well,
exactly.
let's. Okay, my mom's name was Barbara.
Well, I mean, What are you gonna name the UFO that ruins your life? You're gonna
Shoot.
name it the Our Strange Skies podcast?
I mean, yeah, that's that pretty much did it. But if I had to pick a name, I'd name him Henry. Like,
Okay.
Henry's just fuck up. There's no way they
Huh.
don't.
That's
Henry. Okay.
interesting. Yeah, okay.
Interesting. Yeah. All
Like,
right. Well,
like when I picture a Henry in my head, I see someone like I see some investment banker ruining the economy. That's just what I see.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Huh, okay.
Hmm. We could
Is
name
there
it Tom.
Oh, yeah,
Fuck.
really it should
If
be
it's
named
in Massachusetts, it's got to
Tom
be
who
named
fell
Tom.
off a horse.
Yeah.
Tom
Yeah.
who fell off a horse. Tomina who fell off a horse. Yeah. If there's multiple UFOs that are ruining your lives, we got some options.
We do. Holy shit.
So this is pretty much the end of my notes about this episode. The last
Which
part
is
of it,
good because we've totally lost the plot.
we've gone off the rails a little bit, which is honestly fine. Basically the end of this episode is just a bunch of people saying like, why would I make this up? Like
Right.
it didn't improve my life.
It's only made my life worse since I've seen Floyd.
Yes,
Why would
I've
I
been
lie?
ridiculed. It wasn't a fun experience. I never told anybody. I didn't get famous from this, which I mean is a good point.
The only one that has kind of, and I can't say that he profited off it really, is Tom Reed, just because like nobody would know about the Berkshire's UFO sighting if it wasn't for Tom Reed, who wouldn't like shut up about it. So,
Like
like,
really, he just wanted people to rent his car.
yeah,
and it
pretty
didn't
much.
work.
I mean, he's an entrepreneur. You got to do what you got to do to drum up business, I
You
guess.
got that
but-
hustle.
He has a more legitimate business than I thought he did. I thought he was going to be like this really shady nightclub promoter that like
Close enough. I mean,
tricks girls into like doing bottle service.
you
or
know, I
something.
don't know exactly the extent to his fucking.
Maybe that's what he does now.
Yeah, I don't know the
Not
Hold on,
extent to the
he's
bullshit,
renting out
but
that Tom car. Very
Maybe one
lucrative business.
why would you
Samantha,
name
you
your
and I are-
business the fucking Rolling Zone? Like, what the fuck is that?
That's a weird
It's
name.
very weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't make your car sound like it works, for one.
No. No, it
It
makes it
only-
seem like you have like three
only can
people in the back of
roll,
the thing fucking
and you're
pushing it.
it. Yeah. It needs its own zone.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So that brings us to the end of the Berkshire's UFO mystery. Rob, do you think that these people really saw that this was a UFO? What do you think is going on here?
I think they think
have a
they
theory?
saw a
A
UFO.
swamp gas?
No,
Swamp
I don't
gas.
think it was swamp gas. Swamp gas, like, there's no swamp there, so it wouldn't make sense for swamp gas. But like,
That's a bad excuse someone gave then. That was probably swamp gas.
the only
From what
reason that they
swamp?
gave
What?
swamp gas is because there was a high profile case in 1966 in which the investigator blamed it on swamp gas, and it
I
turned
see.
out to like backfire on him, and like he kind of became like a meme for a while.
Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Mm.
I gotcha. So you think that they think they saw a UFO, which I would agree with. I don't think these people are lying.
Well,
Okay, the thing I can't explain the most is the kid running in place and the other kid sees him.
right, that's weird as fuck. You know?
Yeah, and the grandma and the mom swap
Yeah.
seats.
Yeah.
But I think like that's the nature of every UFO sighting is like these people think they saw what they saw. All I can go on is like their description. So like if they seem genuine, which they pretty much do, then you
Yeah.
know, I don't know what it was.
I don't really have a reason to question them.
No,
And there
I
was a
don't
lot
either.
of people.
No. Like
I mean, Tom Reed, okay, he seems a little, at least, odd, but there's a lot of other people. Like Melanie
I'm
doesn't seem odd.
I'm
right?
not
Like, she
gonna
seems
rent
very
his
credible.
fucking 1970s fucking Lincoln Town car, but like
Oh, I am.
you gonna
I
rent
am.
it for 1 hour?
I'm gonna drive it to your house. I'm gonna show up in the rolling zone. There's
what-
nothing you can do.
What?
You just look out the window like, what is happening? Who is that? What is that hideous car? That car has such low mileage.
Oh, so you're
So-
really wanting to like hike up the odometer here. I get it.
Yeah.
Well, it's got
Yeah.
low miles, so
I
you
want
might
him
as well.
to suffer. I know how to get him where it hurts. And it's his odometer.
So, Rob, you brought something to our attention which I didn't know about. Is that as soon, like right after this, the Netflix show launched, that there was more UFO sightings in the Berkshire area.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Kind of reeks of bullshit because it's just like, you know, they announced that this is the UFO stuff, the story that they were covering, and like there was this story that appeared online that said on July 2nd there was a wave of UFO sightings in the Berkshires. I was like, oh really? Conveniently, the day after the Unsolved Mysteries episodes
That is
went
a
out.
little too convenient, I think.
Yeah, just a little too convenient. Like some of the areas that article mentions, like Pine Bush, is like kind of a UFO hotspot, always has been, but like it's not really that. It's not that close.
Rob, you don't know that the aliens don't have Netflix. And you don't know that they're not taking advantage of that coincidence.
You know, like are they fucking bougie like that? Are the aliens really that fucking bougie?
I mean, yeah. They're driving around in chrome spaceships, showing off that they don't even need sheets.
God
They're
damn,
living a
that chrome has to be a bitch to like maintain.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Rob. It's flashy as fuck.
It's true. It's true. All
Okay.
right, so
Do
we
you
should
have
move
another
on to.
another mystery to talk about? This is probably we'll have less to say because it's pretty straightforward, at least in my opinion. This is the last episode they've released so far of the reboot. It's episode 6. It's called Missing Witness. And it takes place in various towns, sort of towns, really just the different no middle of nowhere places in the Ozark Mountains in Missouri. So this is the story of Lena Chapin, who went missing in 2006. And originally, her mom's story was that she told her other children that she had taken off to Florida with a boyfriend. However, she hadn't brought any of her clothes or belongings and had also left her beloved son Coulter.
Oh, just taken off.
Yeah, that she had just like run out of town with some guy. Also, someone from the police department tells us that her stuff was just left on the back porch until it was ruined, which is like probably not how you behave if you think someone's coming back.
No. This is very similar to, is it episode 2 with what's his face who locked his
Yeah.
stepson out of the house? It's
Oh
just not how you
God, yeah,
behave if you're
Rob, that
expecting.
guy Rob,
Yeah.
that guy
The guy
Rob, that like,
ruining the name Rob.
yeah, like that guy that I want to track down and say you're ruining my first fucking name, which means Kingly, you asshole, and we're gonna fucking like take care of it. And you know what? I'm gonna go into that home. I'm gonna retrieve those fucking ashes so her fucking kid could have them because he does not fucking deserve them.
Yeah,
I feel
no.
like the justice to the degree that it is everybody watched that Unsolved Mysteries and now everyone hates him. Like I feel like the whole country hates that guy and doesn't want him to have those ashes.
How did he
So
not realize that he would be like look so hated?
He
Like
has no like self-awareness whatsoever. Clearly,
no, he
He's such
doesn't
a
because
selfish
like
person.
when he said like when they asked him why did you lock him out, he was just like, well, I just didn't like him. I'm like, motherfucker,
That's not a reason.
motherfucker.
Lock a child out of his home when his mother has disappeared.
The
Like
day his mother disappears.
there are people that I don't like and people that I don't
And
like
then
that I'd like to hit with a baseball bat, and that guy definitely falls into the
and
second
then there's Rob.
category.
Yeah. I hope he falls in a well and never gets out. Okay.
Maybe
Yeah.
you could rent that Lincoln Town car and just go like run him over.
Fucking A. I'm gonna like hijack that Lincoln Town car from fucking Tom Reed, and we're gonna turn it into like this crime fighting fucking mobile that nobody's gonna see coming.
Yeah,
oh my God.
I like that.
It's 2022. Samantha and I roll up at the Mothman Festival in that car.
Yeah.
That'd be such a flex. Okay. So we're now getting some backstory on this family. We learned from Lena's sister, Brandy, that they grew up really poor. Their life was a struggle, but their mom, Sandy, worked really hard to provide for her children. She was also very straight-laced. Like, she didn't drink, she didn't do drugs or anything like that. So there's 6 kids. There's Brandy, Lena, Robin, Rachel, Janine, and Rosie. So Lena is the one that is missing, and we hear from Brandy and Robin. We don't really hear from the other children. So their childhoods seemed like they were really chaotic and uncertain. They moved around a lot. What would happen is that Sandy would like hook up with a new guy. She would move in with him. She would take all the children to wherever he lived, and that would last like a couple years. And then she would get interested in someone else, and the whole process would start all over again. And also, just to sort of increase the drama and chaos, she was pretty much only interested in married men, particularly if they had brothers.
So, like, this is what Hall and Oates talked about when they talked about man-eaters.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's a lot going on with Sandy. We don't know what Sandy's childhood was like. I'm guessing it wasn't great. But this childhood makes it so these children, the only consistent adult in their lives is really their mom. Like, it doesn't seem like they have any contact with, like, extended family, at least not regularly. And they don't really get to make deep friendships because they're moving all the time.
Right.
So by November 17th of 1994, Sandy marries a man named Albert. who we hear from. So apparently he was a pretty involved stepfather, and he would like actually do stuff with the kids. And Sandy was working. She was going to school for nursing at the time, so she was pretty busy. So the kids mostly he spent their time with Albert. But what ends up happening is that Sandy cheats on Albert with his brother Gary, and then there ends up being like this huge fist fight in a field, and like Albert's like
Very dramatic.
saying like you two deserve each other, and I think Sandy like hits him on the head with a log or something. It's like I don't know. It's just
It's
a
a
big,
production.
yeah.
At some point, Albert has this like realization, right? Is that he's like,
Yeah.
why am I fighting over this
Right.
woman?
He was just sort of like, this woman is willing to cheat on me with my own brother. Like, I
You
think
can
I'm
have
probably
her.
better
Yeah.
off without her.
Right.
So, Sandy then ends up moving in with Gary, and they move to a different part of Missouri. And this is a much more rural lifestyle. So the kids talk about like they had a lot more chores because they were taking care of animals and stuff. And they lived there for about 3 years. Now, and that seems like it was like stable enough. But then, of course, after 3 years, Sandy becomes interested in this guy named Chris Klemp, and we don't learn a ton about him.
Chris Klemp. Do we need to know anything else about him? His name is Chris Klemp.
I, for some reason, really don't like that Chris is spelled with a K, and that's just my own issue, though. But Chris
like that's
Klemp,
his name is an example of failed alliteration. Like go back to the drawing board, parents.
Usually alliteration feels good on the tongue, but this is chunky and terrible. So they start having an affair in 1999, and apparently the kids were like, "Wow, Gary is gonna kick your ass, Chris," because Chris was more of like a little wiener. But
yeah, on the level of things that could kick your ass. So like Gary, a wiener dog, and then Chris. That's where the levels were.
Yeah, because both Gary, I guess we don't. I think we maybe see a picture of Gary, but he seems a lot like Albert, who's like this country boy, and Chris is also, but he's like a rich country boy. So he's been sheltered.
He's kind of puny. They're like
the silver spoon, but of the country.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
But apparently I'm amused by the fact of like my own children looking at me having an affair going, our stepdad's gonna kick that guy's ass. That guy's a puny little punk. Okay. So that starts in March of 99. And around that time, Gary is arrested for passing bad checks, which actually is something Sandy did with his checkbook. So Sandy ends up getting Gary arrested. He's pretty pissed. He tells some friends and family members, you know what? This is like, not only is she cheating on me, but now she's getting me in like criminal trouble. It's time to get a divorce.
Right.
However, by May 11th, Gary has disappeared. He misses a couple days of work, which is not like him. The way they say it is he couldn't afford to miss work. So he was going to be there. So he misses a couple days of work, which makes people suspicious. But we also hear from a friend of his that the last time he hears from Gary is that Gary brings over a shotgun that Sandy had stuck in his stomach and pulled the trigger. And
Sandy
he was like,
does a lot of things that people seem to like not have the reaction I would have if someone did this to me.
Yeah.
I think Sandy must be hella charming because she's getting away with a lot. So apparently she points a shotgun, like literally to his stomach, pulls the trigger, and he doesn't think there is a round in it, but he still brings that gun to his friend. Like, I don't think this should be around because Sandy just like shot this at me. And so his friend, whatever you call it, opens it up and is like, there's a round in here. And he's like, what are you talking about? It was empty. I always empty it. And he's like, no, and there was like one stuck or I don't know anything about guns, but basically like it was defective. So it hadn't fired. But if it had, that guy would have been shot in the stomach.
Well, that gun also looked old as fuck. So
yeah, it did.
It seems like there was a dramatic moment where he stuck a pliers in there to pull out the stuck round, and it breaks open as he's pulling it out, and all of this gunpowder falls out, and they're both like, "Holy shit! Like, if this hadn't failed to go off, I'd be dead right now.
Right.
Or at least I'd have a hole in my stomach.
I'm
Yeah.
tending to wonder if Gary's like living in denial at this point, being like, she ain't gonna murder me. It was all like a stunt and stuff.
I also feel like he's oddly surprised that Sandy is cheating on him with Chris when, like, she already cheated with you on your own brother.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you kind of already knew what Sandy was like. You had fair warning. Maybe not about, like, she would try to shoot you, but that she was going to cheat on you, like, that's pretty predictable.
Yeah.
Also, this friend has a mustache that is like a horseshoe. Anyway.
There are a lot of mustaches in this episode.
There's a lot. So by May 13th, that's been 2 days that Gary's been gone. The police are actually contacted by Gary's cousin because nobody in the family has seen him for a while, and I think they call his work and they haven't seen him either. So the police arrive and obviously have to return a cow that's gotten out. And obviously. And then Sandy shows up and is like, "What are you doing with my cow?" And they're like, "Is there any reason why you would need to talk to us, Sandy?" And she's like, "Yeah, actually, I've been meaning to call you. My husband hasn't been home for 2 days."
Oh yeah, now that you mention it, glad you brought that up. I do have something I need to tell you.
You have to go get some fucking chickens.
Yeah, her story was that he had gone to nearby Diamond, Missouri to get fighting roosters.
Isn't that illegal? I mean, I guess I realized you could still be doing it, but like the fact that she's just like, "Oh, he went to get a fighting rooster."
Right. Well,
as you do.
You got to make him out to seem like a giant piece of shit, you know.
Maybe that was her motivation.
Yeah.
When I moved to New Mexico, I think it was in 2007, they had only just made it illegal to fight roosters, and which, I don't know, that's just like a very different world. So I would just remember like getting there and opening up the paper, and there was this very like angry letter to the editor about how this person should be allowed to fight roosters, and they were like,
"Welcome to New Mexico."
They were talking about like 200-year-old law. I don't know, and I was just like, where am I? That people are actually like fighting roosters, but apparently, that's what Gary was all about. So, the police search the home, and Sandy's super not happy about it, but I don't know what she was expecting. And the police do not find literally any of Gary's clothes in the house. They don't actually find any evidence that he even lives there.
After like, how long has he been gone? A couple days?
2 days! 2 days! It's like he's never existed. He's been just wiped off the map of this house. And there's no evidence that he was planning to return. And though in that 2 days later, Chris moves into the house. So, an officer asked Sandy if she would be willing to take a polygraph about his disappearance, which obviously she doesn't have to do. But her reaction was to look the officer straight in the eye and say, "You find a body, and I'll take a polygraph."
Mm-hmm.
You know, I would advise someone to refuse a polygraph, but maybe phrase it differently.
Maybe say they're bullshit and I don't believe in them.
Yeah,
right,
not you find him first.
I mean, they're not a good fucking tool. I mean,
that's just outdated technology. We know that it's just a stress test. No, thank you. Or like, oh, you know what? I'm going to talk to a lawyer, actually, because that sounds like a terrible idea. Not, oh, I've got a dare for you, officer. You find my husband's body, and I'll take your polygraph. It's like, try to be more suspicious. So the children were actually very used to lying for their mother. It happened all the time. I mean, it sounds like she was kind of a shady person, so that was just kind of the way that the family functioned. They were sat down for dinner and told that they were not allowed to talk about Gary, and that if anyone asked, the story was that he went to buy a fighting rooster and they had spaghetti for dinner.
Was that before or after she like locked them all out of the house?
Okay, we learned that piece of information first, but it probably happened after.
Oh, gotcha.
Because then one daughter, I think it's Brandy. Okay, so she sends all the kids out to like go look in the field. I think she tells them there was like a kid in the field or something. Anyway, she like kicks them all out of the house.
Well, they got home from school, I think. They got home from school and she was like, "You can't come in here. Go look in here. Go look in the field
for the kitten." But I think Brandy had chores. So she was like, "No, I need to go in the house and get my stuff to milk cows because, otherwise she's probably worried about getting in trouble, right?" So she ends up going into the house after her mom told her not to and finds her mom on her hands and knees scrubbing the floor with water and bleach.
Yeah, not suspicious at all. Not suspicious
after you've been just like kicked out of the house. Also, she's like not that young at this point.
No.
So she's sort of like, My mom had her hair in a ponytail, which like never happened. She was scrubbing the floor, which I also got the impression that never really happened. And also, she's using bleach.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to come in here.
Oh, we're not allowed to come in here. We hear from Robin that she actually distinctly remembers her mom and Chris dragging something heavy. Like she looked out the window around the time that Gary went missing, and she remembers Chris and her mom dragging something, and she could actually even see Gary's boots. But she was younger, and this scared her so bad that she didn't talk about it for years. And I'm sure she had like had trouble even making sense of like what was happening.
I think this incident like is evidence that Lena knew something because I think her mom says like it's nighttime and she says you all need to stay in your room and Lena make sure no one comes out.
Right.
And
Because Lena
so
is the oldest. I probably should have mentioned that. So Lena is the oldest, and she's like, Sandy is a single parent, sort of, at times. So Lena is like kind of in charge of all the younger children and like keeping them in line. So Lena's like, you have to do this for mom, and then everybody would just do it.
right.
That's
But then
like
of
their
course
power
Brandy
together.
like looks out the window cuz she's like something is weird. Like
She
she's old
probably
enough to
heard
understand,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
that something weird is going on. So she looks out the window and sees them carrying a body. I mean, it's wrapped up, but its feet are apparently sticking out.
Yeah, and she's like so frightened by that she doesn't say anything for a long time. It also is clear that the kids were really aware of not wanting to be put in foster care and split up. Like
Yeah.
that, they know they're smart enough to know the six of them are not staying together, and there's not. It doesn't seem like there's family that can take them in.
Well, and
So it's
Lena apparently it seems like Lena knows exactly what's going on and is like if anyone figures this out, we're getting separated.
yeah, exactly. So she's trying to like keep the family together. So quickly after this happens, they move to St. Louis for about a year before moving to Sligo, Missouri, the following August. And during that time, they're in St. Louis. Sandy and Chris get married. So by 2000, they're in Sligo. Um, Lena is a teen now. She's clearly troubled. Like something is clearly bothering her. And her boyfriend at the time persuades her to tell Gary's family. Like she tells her boyfriend, look, I helped my mom get rid of my stepfather, and I'm not dealing with it very well. And
Yeah.
he's like, you need to tell Gary's family that he's not coming home. At this point, it's been about 3 years
Right.
since he's gone missing. And she agrees to tell Albert. So Albert was Gary's brother. That was her stepfather for a while, and she really liked Albert. So she agrees that, like, yeah, the right thing to do would be to tell Albert that Gary's not coming home. So in June of 2003, she goes to see Albert. I think Albert clearly knows something is up to hear from Lena out of the blue like this. So he records their conversation. And during that conversation, she says that Gary was eating scrambled eggs on the couch when Sandy just walked out and shot him in the head 3 times. She said that his body was then wrapped in plastic and tied with hay ties, that it was put in the back of the truck and it was later burned and the ashes were spread. Lena talks about how she burned her fingers picking up his ashes and bones from the fire. She would have been 13 at the time. And she's the only other person that knows what happened besides Sandy and Chris. And she clearly feels very guilty about this, but also she feels very guilty about what she's done, but she also feels very guilty like turning in her mom. It's a very conflicting situation for her. And she's still only a teenager herself. So the day after the recording is made, Albert takes that to the police, but Sandy has gotten Lena a lawyer and gotten her to recant her confession. So it's not enough on its own to prosecute Sandy. Also, so there's a few extra scenes that Netflix didn't include in the episode, and one of them is that the police didn't entirely believe this confession. I guess it's a little bit inconsistent that she talks about. She'll say something and then she'll sort of like say, well, actually, then this happened. Or she like refers to sitting on a floor and they were like, yeah, actually, that floor is like covered in junk. Like, we find it kind of suspicious that anybody would do that. Personally, just my thinking is that she felt really bad telling Albert what happened. And also, she was only 13 when this happened.
Right.
So I don't take that to mean that it's not true.
Right.
But apparently the police didn't take it super seriously because of some inconsistencies.
Yeah, considering everything else we hear, like there's another witness and her other sister, like all of the weird stuff going on, and then what happens to Lena, like I think it's
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
obvious.
I don't feel like there's a ton of room for doubt, but it is kind of interesting to me that that's part of why they didn't, like, I don't do a more thorough investigation at the time.
Right, that is interesting.
Because they didn't have the information about the sister, and yeah, obviously they don't know what's going to happen to Lena. So, after this happens, Brandy and Lena are hanging out. Lena confides in her sister what really happened. And her sister had no idea and is completely shocked. Like, she had debated over the years like what had happened to Gary, but she honestly like didn't think her mother was capable of murder, which I suppose most of us would think our
Yeah.
mothers weren't capable of murder. So this is very shocking information to her. And then the next day she gets into a fight with her mom and ends up threatening to call the police and tell everything that she did. So Sandy tells her to get in the truck. And Sandy, she's sitting in like the back of the bed of the pickup truck. Sandy and Chris drive her out to the middle of absolute fucking nowhere in the middle of the fucking night. And Chris gets out of the car and just points a gun at her head.
This is wild.
Mm-hmm.
And she can see her mom just sitting in the cab of the truck, staring straight ahead, not doing anything. And then I think they weren't going to kill her. I think they were just trying to scare her. But she makes a very smart decision in this like moment of panic. Like, what if my mom's door is open? So she goes and grabs the door. She like jumps onto her mom, like hugging her mom so that he won't shoot her.
It's very smart.
Yeah, it's very smart. And so she's like holding on to her mom for what feels like forever, but it's probably a few seconds. And her mom's like, "Don't hurt my baby." And so that, like, I don't know, possibly saves her life or who knows. So that after that, of course, Brandy's like too scared to say anything and she doesn't really have any proof anyway. So life goes on. It's later. It's like 2003. Lena gives birth to her son Coulter and then is just focused on raising him. So she doesn't say anything else about Gary or anything. She is just, working a couple jobs, trying to make enough money for her son. Sandy would watch her son while she was at work. So this goes on for like 3 years. It's now 2006. Lena is 21. She's planning to get married. She's like focused on her son and her new life and everything. But that means she's going to be independent from her mother, which is threatening to Sandy because if she doesn't have power over her, then she can't keep her from telling her story.
Right.
Also, her mother seems like weirdly fixated on Coulter and
Yeah,
wants
this
to call
is
her mom and shit.
this is creepy. And it seems like as soon as she found out he was going to be a boy is when she started acting weird.
And I hate that so much. So she had 6 girls and apparently always really wanted a boy, which who cares, but whatever. So when she found out her daughter was having a boy, she was like, "Oh, this is like the son I never had.
Oh, I
He's
hate it. I
mine."
hate it.
So
This is
as
like
if
the
you
son I
couldn't-
never had that I could commit crimes with.
Yes, I wanted a son to go on a crime spree with, and I only had daughters. So everything comes to a head at this time in 2006 when Gary's family decides to file a civil case for wrongful death against Sandy and Chris. So the criminal investigation hasn't gone anywhere, right? They even had that taped thing from Lena and the cops don't do anything. So they eventually decide, you know what? We're not going to get justice that way. We're filing a civil case. They list Lena as an accessory for like after the fact cleaning up the dead body because they're hoping that will get her to testify in exchange for immunity. But what actually happens is when it's time to file the court summons, Lena is nowhere to be found. She is now missing. She's supposedly run off to Florida with some dude. Except that her sisters are close with her. They know there's not some other dude. They know she wanted to get married. They know she wanted to stay and take care of her son. She's just not randomly piecing off to Florida. It doesn't even sound like her kind of behavior. Also, while her older sisters are putting up missing person flyers around town to try to find her, it turns out Sandy is paying the youngest kid $5 a piece to take down the missing person flyers.
Oh my god.
Like that is
Everything
so
about
cold.
It's
it is.
so fucking cold and could not be more suspicious. It's the most suspicious thing I've ever heard in my life. Also, at this point, Sandy files abandonment charges, so she gets custody of Coulter.
Right, because of course Lena doesn't show up to her court
Yeah,
date, and so
she
the
knows Lena's not going to show up because guess what? Lena's already dead.
Like, they
So
should have called this episode, Could There Not Be a Suspicion for once?
yeah, it's only like the most suspicious. I can't even talk. It's only the most suspicious behavior you've ever heard in your life. So for some reason, it takes I don't know. The wheels of justice are slow. It's not until 2013 that this lawsuit finally actually goes to court. The recording of Lena is not allowed because it can't be substantiated. However, Sandy's daughters, Brandy and Robin, take the stand and they both accuse their mother of Gary's murder. And so the court finds that Sandy and Chris are ordered to pay $7 million in damages to Gary's daughters. Of course, they have yet to receive any of that money.
right.
So that's pretty much the end. We learned that Sandy and Chris get divorced in 2014. I know you thought that was like
What there wasn't a love story for a generation.
Yeah, exactly. You thought that was like the most inspirational love. It was like The Notebook. Like you're like, oh my god, there's never been a love like this. I'm actually surprised they stayed together that long, but probably murder like bound them. Sandy has since remarried. Someone was willing to marry that witch once again, but she still has custody of Lena's son Coulter, which totally sucks. And Brandy at one point, like very much, yeah, like she's intake and is like, now that my sister is gone, I will spend every day of my life trying to put my mom away. I am not afraid. And it's such a like Shakespearean level of drama of like,
Yeah.
I am coming for you. So it ends with at the very end of the episode, they try to like create a little suspense because Sandy and Chris had access when Gary disappeared. They had access to two pretty large properties. One is like acres and acres and acres. I'm sorry, at the time Lena disappeared. So we see Brandy go to the farm where they were living, and where she remembers there used to be like a small stone well. Well, that's gone and it's been filled in. There's like
Which
new
is
sod
suspicious.
over all of that. Don't like that. And then we see Robin at their other property where she tells a story about remembering they're like in the car and her mom points to 4 trees and goes, "Oh, that's where I buried my dog." And she goes, "No, it isn't. Your dog's buried at the old house.
Right.
Why are you so sentimental about these 4 trees?" So we see a guy come out with some ground penetrating radar to see if there's any disturbance in the ground under those trees. Unfortunately, they don't find any remains. So there aren't any real updates to this. Apparently they've gotten a bunch of leads. I don't know if any of that's going to pan out. The only extra information I could find really was that the police didn't really believe that Lena's tape. It just seems really straightforward to me.
I mean, I think the mystery is we need some information to put these people behind bars. Like, I don't know if there's actually like a mystery. I mean, it seems pretty clear what happened.
It's like the mystery is how can we prove this person's guilt?
Mm-hmm.
And even at one point, her daughter is like, she's not stupid. And I think that's really clear because these bodies are disposed of so thoroughly.
Yeah.
Where it seems like they really are just like burned down to ash and then the ashes are spread about. Like, what can you do with that?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's very sad. If you didn't get
so
that
sad.
from my recap, it's so sad.
It's so sad. That little boy is with.
I know.
I mean, I guess the only thing I could think of at the end is like he's gonna grow up knowing. Like eventually he's gonna find out that his grandma who's raising him killed his mom. Like you know what? Like what is that?
Apparently he was
gonna
being
be like?
Told for a while to like keep him from that information, but the two like older daughters were like, "We're gonna tell him."
Yeah.
But even without that, he would still know. Like, we know. Everyone knows. It's just out there now.
There's not that many Coulters out there.
No.
Living with their grandma. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I hope there is some resolution to this because I feel so bad for the other sisters. And I do, you know, you kind of have to wonder about Sandy. Like, did she not know that's what was going to happen? Like, they were like, okay, it's one thing to kill Gary. Like, who cares about him? But you killed her sister.
Yeah.
Of course they're going to be, like, out for vengeance. You raised very loyal people.
Right. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I hope Sandy gets what's coming to her. Her and Rob. Maybe Sandy's next husband will be Rob.
Two for
that's
one
a
deal.
match made in heaven.
Two
For
for
sure.
And
one
then
deal.
Rob will kill her, and then a piano will fall on Rob's head.
Yeah.
We can dream. We can dream. So that's it for the Unsolved Mysteries reboot so far. New episodes coming next month.
I'm excited for the new episodes. I really can't wait.
I'm super curious what type of things we're gonna get.
Yeah. I mean, I
And
loved this
also-
season, so I'm excited for, or I mean, I guess it's not a new season, it's just 6 more episodes, but yeah,
Yeah.
excited for what's
I
to come.
haven't thrown myself off the Belvedere yet, and I think that's good too.
You almost did before we started recording.
I know.
We finally got
I-
Zencaster to work, thank God, otherwise
I
Liv would be on her
hate-
way.
Yeah, I hate technical problems. I just find them so frustrating. I don't know what my
They're
deal
all
is.
dumb.
I was like, this is really what the future is like. Like,
Just restarting your computer until it magically just starts working.
yeah, I don't know. Well, Rob, it was so nice of you to join us for this.
Yes, thank you. I
And give
really
us your
appreciate you being
wisdom
on.
and teach us about the rolling zone.
I know, I appreciate it. You know, anytime I can share the good news about Tom Reed is a good day.
What are you gonna do with all your free time now that you've dramatically quit the podcasting world?
The interesting thing is, like, I just quit one podcast. Like, I'm gonna end up having more
Oh, yeah.
podcasts.
So promote those projects. Tell people where they can hear you.
Yeah, so like the main podcast that I have right now is called Dakota, a music podcast. I co-host it with my buddy Brian, and we just talk like music for like an hour. It's usually a
Sounds like
loose and easy
bliss.
conversation. It's a good time. I am part of a role-playing podcast, actual play game called The Order of Podcasters, and basically, there are 3 of us, and we play these characters that essentially have to hunt down people that are unleashing supernatural shit upon the world, and we've got one episode up right now. There'll be another episode up soon, so the Order of Podcasters.
So you didn't quit at all, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, pretty much. And I mean,
Those rumors were greatly exaggerated.
right. I just quit the UFO stuff. I got other stuff in the fires, and I'm working on another like a Dungeons and Dragons podcast that'll be coming toward the end of the year. So yeah, there's plenty of me going around right now on the podcasting apps.
Well, you know what Robert's Tag would have to say about Dungeons and Dragons, but
I can't
Yeah,
wait
Rob.
until like the Unsolved Mysteries reboot eventually covers my murder at the hands of my satanic D&D group.
Some satanic LARPers.
Yeah.
Have you by any chance watched Riverdale?
No, I haven't.
The 3rd season is all about fake Dungeons and Dragons called Griffins and Gargoyles, and it literally like decimates the Midwest.
That's
honestly
amazing.
Amazing. Okay, so Samantha, next month the new episodes drop, but kind of late in the month. So I don't think we should start those in October. Yes,
I agree.
I think we should watch the first episode of Riverdale
Let's do it.
because
I
I've
haven't
been
watched
rewatching,
Riverdale.
and I'm getting like I'm kind of obsessed.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, so every patrons, that's where your dollar's going next month. Me geek out about Riverdale, which
And me experiencing it for the first time.
that sounds fun.
It does kind of sounds fun. We could use something to lighten the mood. We need a palate
Yeah,
cleanser before we
yeah.
jump right into what's certain to be some depressing shit. I mean, we don't know exactly what's in store for us in the next 6 episodes, but some of them are going to be depressing, probably most of them. So,
I mean, that's par for the course for Unsolved Mysteries. There's no lost loves here,
Yeah.
so it's depression 24/7.
It really is.
yeah, we're not going to get a
careful
lost
not
love.
to
So,
completely decimate the Midwest with your D&D game, Rob.
I'm gonna try not
Try.
to.
Just try.
I can't make any guarantees. We've got dungeons, we've got dragons, we've got demons, we've got like a whole gaggle of monsters. So
Oh,
like
goddamn.
Midwest,
Midwest is doomed.
Midwest, we're fucking coming for you.
Okay. Well, everyone, if you use the rolling zone, let us know.
be sure to like take a photo and tag us on
Write us
Instagram.
in, perhaps, to do podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
Thanks for your money, and we'll talk to you later.